the history of Black Hebrew Israelites. How did it begin in the United States? Yeah.
Before we get started, let me give you a little context. These men are Christian apologists from Angola. That's a country on the western side of southern Africa. They're passionate believers who reached out to me after watching the Street Apologist channel. They wanted to talk apologetics, specifically how it applies in an African and urban context. Now, a heads up, large portions were originally in Portuguese.
Não existe nada de mal com acreditar que a Terra é plana. Isso não leva ninguém ao inferno.
And to keep things flowing, we've edited those out. That's why the edit might feel a little abrupt at times, but what we did keep is solid. Let's dive in.
Okay, there we go. We're live. We're live. So this is massive. So we are with brother Vocab Malone. So this is huge. This is a brand new thing for us in Angola. So
yes, actually, when I saw you with David Wood, I actually thought you were a specialist in his land. I was surprised that you have this particularity, in Black Hebrew Israelite. So it's quite amazing.
I do a lot of stuff on Islam, and that's why I hang out with David Wood and Sam Shamoon and those guys.
You're even doing Islamicize me.
Yes, Islamicize me. Yeah. And but I do study Islam, but I am more, my number one would be the Hebrew Israelites and things related to that.
It's quite funny, for a white person to be interested in Black Hebrew Israelites. It's kind of it's really funny, but it's really interesting though. Yeah.
Well, it's just the neighborhoods you grow up in and the people you're around and the doors that God opens,
Yeah.
I mean, Jonah went to the Assyrians. I don't know how Jonah looked or the Assyrians looked, but they weren't all the same people, and so sometimes God has people in surprising places, I guess.
Yeah. So, então nós estamos partilhando a live, estamos indo partilhando essa super live com Vocab Malone hoje. E vamos falar sobre israelitas negros, Black Hebrew Israelites. É o tema de hoje, essa ideia. Será que foram os brancos que levaram os verdadeiros israelitas para a América?
So, brother Vocab Malone, you will notice that I will be speaking in Portuguese first to give the audience the context, and then I will be asking questions directly to you. So, firstly, we want to know you, a little bit more. Vocab Malone, what's your real name and who are you? Tell us a little bit more about you.
We'll just say my initials. My initials nickname I go by is JM. JM.
Okay.
What was the other question he asked me, Hugo?
Yeah, the very first one, what is your original name? Which you respond as JM. So the very first question, I think I just forgot it. So Mundo's back.
Yeah, sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties. So yeah, what's your real name? Vocab Malone. I've seen one of your videos, and there is a name that you don't actually mention.
JM.
JM. Yeah,
it's JM. That's what that was sort of my real nickname. I don't want to give my full real name because it makes people who want to come after me easy to track me down. So, but JM.
So, brother Vocab Malone, as you said, your ministry is very dangerous in the sense that there are many people actually want to kind of behead and kill you. But for you to do something like that is dangerous. So there must be something really, really, that motivates you. What actually motivates you to do this kind of job, this ministry?
A few things. One is if God puts a passion in you then nothing anyone says or do can take that away. So God gives people a special heart for a special task. All of us, I believe. The other thing is I used to get in trouble at school sometimes for being a rebel, but God can take that being a rebel and use it for his own glory and make me a rebel against the world and being willing to rebel against the things that they say and do. Last thing is that I don't consider myself too brave compared to the Christians all over the world throughout history. You must be much braver to be a Christian in Saudi Arabia or northern Sudan or China.
Brother Vocab Malone, it's exactly what you're saying. It's like John the Baptist, for example. You know, it was a person who actually he had to face the king, you know, to call out for his sin, and he was beheaded eventually because of that. So I think today we think like Christianity, being a Christian, we must be loved by everybody. But in the Bible, Christianity is not like that. We're not gonna be loved by everybody all the time, you know, because we need to call out the sin. What are your comments on that, on the today's Christianity, you know, thinking that everyone must love you or something like that?
Well, I would like to be loved by everybody. That'd be nice. But the Bible does say, woe to you if all men speak well of you. And Jesus also told us that a servant is not greater than the master. So Jesus is the master. You, me, Raimundo, Hugo, we're servants. And he said then in the book of John that if they hated and persecuted me, they will hate you and persecute you. And so it could be a lot worse, but you know, Jesus says he won't leave us or forsake us. So we just trust in that.
So, Brother Vocab Malone, usually even me in the past, you know, when I heard about apologetics, when I heard about apologetics in the past, my idea was that to do apologetics, you have to have a PhD, you know. But right now, we talking about something like urban apologetics. So how do you differentiate them? And why do you think urban apologetics, we should engage also in urban apologetics?
Good question. So in the book of 1 Peter right here, if you remember, everybody, Peter, just a fisherman. And yet the fisherman, Peter, wrote to all the Christians and said in 1 Peter 3:15 to be ready to give an answer to everyone who asks you for the hope that lies inside you. So the fisherman tells all the Christians, give an answer. And now urban apologetics has to do mainly with issues that pop up in our cities. And you can even say cities all over the world. And so the reason why urban apologetics is important is because our cities are important.
That's right. Brother Vocab Malone. Yeah, as you said, it's totally, we totally agree. But one of the things that, you know, people struggle with is preparation, because everything, I think, pretty much in every area of knowledge, we need preparation. You don't go to the street just to discuss something you didn't, you know, read about. So what pieces of advice do you have for people like us, you know, who want to engage in urban apologetics? How do we prepare ourselves? So what are the basic things we should be focusing in order to be good at this field?
Well, in 1 Corinthians 15, the Apostle Paul wrote to the church in Corinth, and he said, I preach the gospel to you. And then he says, I'm going to preach it again to you. He's telling them, he's repeating himself. And so when you repeat yourself, it's because that thing is very important. And our brother Paul says that this is the thing that saves you. And what is that thing? That thing is the gospel. And so the first thing for a Christian to do is to learn the good news about Jesus Christ. And then that way, when we hear things that go against the gospel of Jesus Christ, we recognize them and realize they are bad. For example, the Bible says in John 3:16, God so loved the world that he sent his only son. The Hebrew Israelites say Jesus only came for people with certain skin colors. So the gospel will help us see that's wrong. And then one other thing is the very nature of God. The Christian must become very familiar with who God is. And so Father, Son, Holy Spirit, all three persons, we must have a better understanding of. And if you look in a lot of the letters that Apostle Paul wrote, he would sometimes say something like this to the church: I pray that you go in the grace and knowledge. So he wanted Christians to grow in knowledge. For example, there is something called the Athanasian Creed. And the reason why I bring that up is because not many people realize one of the most important creeds in Christianity for all Christians.
Algo que existe.
One other thing is named after an African man. Athanasius was an African. So when we say the Athanasian Creed, it's important to understand that truth and realize, hey, it's even named after an African Christian. And if you look at the Athanasian Creed, which comes from the Bible, it's very old. It speaks about the Father, the Son, and the Spirit, and it gives you a better understanding of what most people usually call the Trinity. And so those two things, the gospel and the nature of God, are very important for apologetics. And then try to look around where you live and see what are the important issues right there in your community and try to learn about those specific issues. So if you live in Utah in the United States, Mormonism is very big there. Maybe you become a specialist in that area. If you were in Puerto Rico, you might want to learn about Santeria there. There's different challenges in different places. If I was in France, I might have to really study atheism because of how many atheists are in France. And there's different issues. And so I say become an expert on those local community issues.
Basically, Brother Vocab, are you familiar with Afrocentrism?
Yeah, I'm familiar with Afrocentrism.
Estou familiarizado com afrocentricismo.
I would describe Afrocentrism as a way of looking at things that puts a certain reading on top of everything. And so it's not just reading the Bible. They would read the Bible with Afrocentric glasses. And so it affects everything you see.
Vocab, are you how familiar are you with this crazy conspiracionists about flat earthers and also the geocentric? They are apologists of the geocentric model. How familiar are you with this, and what do you have to say about it?
Well, only somewhat. I have done one program where I had a man who is a flat earther come on, and we kind of did a debate back and forth. And yes, but I'm not an expert on the flat earth stuff, but I would recommend a book about this. I do not know if it's been translated into Portuguese, but it's written by a Christian who is a scientist. His name is Danny Faulkner. The book just came out. It just came out last year. It's called Falling Flat, A Refutation of Flat Earth Claims. Falling Flat is the name of it. And on the cover, it has a picture of a flat earth.
Falling Flat.
Real quick, one more thing about the flat earth and geocentric. Believing in them doesn't send a person to hell if you think that the earth is the middle of the universe or the earth is flat. The problem is a few things. Number one is it makes Christians seem like they do not care about any science at all. And this has nothing to do with evolution. This is just science. Number two, these Christians become obsessed with the flat earth, and then they leave the gospel behind.
Yeah.
So, Brother Vocab, now we're going to talk about your field, Black Israelites, Black Hebrew Israelites. So, basically, in a nutshell, how would you define it? I've seen one of your videos, and you mentioned two places about that. So tell us a little bit more about that.
The main thing Hebrew Israelites say are that people who are descendants of slaves in the Western Hemisphere are the true Israelites. That's the main thing. And they also all say that people who say they are Jews are all fake, that they are all frauds. Yes. And then the third thing that they all say is that God cares about your ethnicity a lot. And in fact, the race you are changes how God views you and sees you. Yes.
Absolutely. That's wow, that's kind of hilarious to some extent. So
well, let's remember that there were also many white people who did this before. For example, men from Britain called the British Israelites about 100 years, actually 100 years before the Hebrew Israelites came around. They read the Bible and said, hey, the British and the Americans are the descendants of the Israelites. They did the same. And also, earlier you mentioned Afrocentrism. We must remember that some Europeans had something you could call Eurocentrism, where they put themselves in the middle of the Bible. And so many people from many backgrounds have committed this sin of looking at the Bible and mainly wanting to see themselves instead of first looking for God. And we do this because we as humans are sinful creatures, and we make idols. And one of the idols that we make is the idol of ourself, the way we look, and our own culture. God loves our culture. He put us in it for a reason, but it's a sin to make an idol out of our culture.
Brother Vocab, I think most of the time when we hear about Black Hebrew Israelites, we think immediately the question if was Jesus black or white. Do you think there is a connection between this question and the Black Hebrew Israelites' beliefs?
Yes. So Europe has been very dominant the past, let's say, 500 years in the world. And the Europeans basically took an image of a Jesus who was fair-skinned with them everywhere they went into the world. Now, Jesus was from the Middle East. He was a tribal man. The people that still live there today are dark brown skin. There's no way Jesus looked like a Scandinavian. But the world is not just filled with people who are black and white. The world has people of all shades and variations. And so Jesus not looking white does not mean then all of a sudden that he looked what we would call black. He is different than that. But technically, we don't really literally know because we don't have pictures of him. And the Bible never describes his physical appearance. And I think that's because the most important thing about Jesus was not the way he looked, but it's who he was and what he did on the cross. Now, when I debate Black Hebrew Israelites, they try to say Jesus is shown to be a black man in Revelation chapter 1. But look at my YouTube channel. I just did a 2.5-hour debate with a man who said that. And in the debate, you will see that it's simply not what Revelation 1 is about. It's about Jesus being God, not about being a black man or a white man or anything like that. You can hear in the debate, you will see what is true.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned actually very important points. O nosso irmão Vocab Malone mencionou muitos pontos importantes que acho que. So yeah, I'm just saying that you mentioned very important points. You know, you mentioned that the Bible doesn't really talk about Jesus' appearance because that's not really what matters the most. You know what I mean? So the most important thing is that he is the Savior. Yeah, absolutely.
The Bible does say that there was nothing about his appearance that would make us desire him. That doesn't mean he was ugly. It just means he wasn't, superstar model, I think. And then also, if you notice, Judas had to kiss him on the cheek to show the Jewish leaders which man he was. What does that tell you? That tells you that Jesus looked very similar to the other Hebrews of his day.
Yeah. Brother Vocab, the history of Black Hebrews Israelites. How did it begin in the United States?
The first records we have are in the late 1880s and in the 1890s. One of the first men named Crowdy says he was out chopping wood and had a vision that Black Americans were actually the true Israelites.
Então, homem, não é, what was the name?
Crowdy, Crowdy. And then it kept on growing and growing and growing from there. And then with YouTube, the ideas exploded. And in the meantime, one of the main places that it was growing was in New York City. In America, New York and New York City are the place where many of our bad religious ideas and cults come from. And just like the British Israelites I mentioned before, they had a lot of bad arguments. The British Israelites had a lot of arguments that were not good at all. The Hebrew Israelites basically took a lot of those same arguments and then flipped them around and used a lot of those same bad arguments. And this shows you that everybody wants to be Jewish unless there's a Holocaust happening.
Isso mostra que todo mundo quer ser judeu, menos no aspecto do Holocausto.
That's really hilarious, because most of these religion, even the Mormonism, they all claim to have seen an angel or something.
African prophetism.
Prophet Muhammad
in a cave.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny, everyone wants to see an angel.